I don't know if you caught the first part I was talking about of the death of hope and how devastating that was. But like, there's so many types of death. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And there is, it's all a part of life.
Say that again.
It actually starts with like a death of a part of my life, leading to a new life.
Okay. Cool.
Do you know what I mean? But there's so much in that. And it's just like the revelation of like how much we get packaged like into who we're supposed to be and who we are molded into. And it's like the death is the pulling away of all of that so that we can actually be what we were actually like, back to birth. You know what I'm saying? So
cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, but we're going to see where it goes because I don't know. I'm not planning too much, but I just thought, oh, yeah, well, mine is kind of a big resurrection story.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where you want to start? You said you had, so it started with death, you said?
Well, so, you know, we can talk a little bit about my life, like what was life to me. And like, what I had this revelation because my friend lost her partner, her longtime partner, and I've been helping her for a couple of years walk out grief. And the most significant thing that I could really pinpoint as like my identifying thing is like, because every part of her life felt like she also died when he died, right? Because her life was so enmeshed with that, you know? But I also felt like that when Mike and I split up because it was like all the parts and pieces of what I had built and my hope. It was death of hope.
Right.
But it was a false hope, really. It was like, it's going to work out. Yeah. And like, there's a true hope. But it was a death of that. Like, I thought this was the way it was going to be. But then it was a birth of a whole new life and a whole new way of seeing the world and seeing myself.
And so when you say a true hope, what do you mean by that? Is that like just like it was real? It was a real hope, but it wasn't like stable?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I was addicted to hope.
Okay.
Okay. It's kind of like, you know, you get the prophetic words, or you're just like living for when this happens. Right. And it's like an addiction. It's like you're not so much rooted in reality. You're more rooted in this fantasy of what's coming.
Totally.
You know, and you're living for that. And when that blows up, it's really devastating.
Yeah, I heard somewhere, I think it was a comedian, I think it was Sam Talent. He talked about it. He said, he's like, don't tell people what you're about to do, because you'll get the dopamine rush describing what you're going to do, and then you don't actually do it.
I've heard this, and it's like if you hold it in, then you'll actually keep going. And
totally.
I agree with this.
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah, but anyway, it's like the death of. It was a devastating, like, death to that illusion.
Okay.
That I had been living in for so long, of like, if I do this and this and this and this, everything's going to be fine. And that's not how it played out. But I realized that I kind of came into true, like, real hope.
Okay.
And real hope is actually rooted in having suffered, having persevered, having overcome. I now know that no matter what, I'm going to make it.
So it's more of a self-confidence.
Yes.
Okay.
It's also, but it's like, I still have hopes. I have big hopes, but I don't have an investment in absolutes about how it's going to go down.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So
I'm living in joy of like the whole process, and I still have hopes, but I don't have expectations.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep. So you have like so you're focused on like the end result, but not focused on how you get there, rather.
Right. Well, and not even like I have a result that I would like to see, but I don't even really get that far.
Okay.
I'm more like, okay, Like this is what I'm doing now, and I'm putting something out there into the world, and I'm gonna trust the process that if it's right timing and if it's like I'll just move along, and in the process I'll find joy. And this, but I'm not thinking, oh, this is the big thing. Life is the big thing,
Totally.
you know.
I mean, that's why this
And
this podcast is called LSD.
yeah,
It's like it's
life
such
is the big thing. So that's
it's
kind
a
of where,
weird.
okay, so
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm thinking I'll go.
Okay, cool. I
But
mean,
there are death things because, like,
sweet.
with my mom just passing, I have a really cool death story, like a story of like an exchange between us before she died. That's
Talk about it.
That's really.
We're
you want me
rolling,
to-
so
We are rolling.
yeah.
We're on.
we've been going. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was, so
So how recent was your mom's
my
passing?
mom passed a little over a month ago.
Okay.
Okay, so she had a stroke, and it was touch and go, and it was like, oh, she's going into hospice. And I immediately canceled everything and got on a plane and got down there.
Because she's in Florida. Yeah. Okay.
And so I was down there for 6 days. Now, by the time I got on the plane, she was not in hospice. You know, they were like, oh, she's doing better. So I was so thankful because I got to be with her. I was so nervous that she wouldn't make it by the time I got there. And we were really close. We had developed a really super close relationship over, especially the past years, where I hadn't really been able to see her, but we talked on the phone every day. And
oh wow.
Yeah, every single day. It was like mom time, you know.
That's cool.
And and it was really good. And anyway, and I learned so much from that. There's so much richness of just getting to know her as a person and not a mom. You know what I mean? Just getting to know her as a human being and learning from her life experiences and sharing and being open with mine, because I always only shared really the highlights, you know, and kept it kind of surfacey.
Interesting.
But when I started getting into the daily minutia and the things that were the ups, the downs, it got really, really beautiful, you know, because that's where the life is. That's where life is. Anyway, so I went down there, and you know, she was not able to swallow. She had a stroke, and she was paralyzed on one side, and she was having trouble talking. And but over those days, like on the last day I was there, she actually talked all day long. She had clarity, and she wanted to process a lot of her life, which was a real gift that I got to do that with her.
Right.
So I had to come back home, and they were getting ready to move her into a rehab facility, but she didn't last long there. She took a turn, but I knew that she was going to pass. I just had a sense, and she started to act like some dementia, and I felt that was happening. And one day I called down there, and her friend was there, and her friend said, she's got clear, or the nurse said, she's got clarity today. Would you like to talk to her? And so I was able to tell her, I was like, you know, things are really moving forward for me. And I started telling her I had new clients, and, you know, I had a speaking engagement upcoming, and she like heard it. And I was like, I know you need to know this, because I kept thinking she's hanging on because she wants to see it.
Totally.
She wanted to be here to see it. And
Absolutely.
I was like, I want you to know you were here to see it.
Yeah.
And I felt like she needed that permission, you know, to not cling to life. That, you know, because it wasn't going to go well for her if she stayed here. It was clear that she was not going to improve.
I've thought about that a lot. Like, obviously, this is one of the reasons why I have this podcast is because I'm freaked out about death. Not for the fact of like, what is the afterlife, or is there an afterlife, or any of that, but the fact that I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
That's the portion that freaks me out the most, is because most everything here we can figure out.
Yeah.
But it's like our small little brain can't wrap our mind about around like, all right, this reality is going away. And it's like, if I think about it too much, I start going into a panic attack.
Right.
Because I've only ever known this reality once I became self-aware at whatever age that was. But now as like a full-grown brain of mine, I'm like, okay, this, I can't think about it too much because I'm like, oh Lord, that's weird.
Well, I just see it as a continuation, you
Yeah.
know, into another level of consciousness. And I, you know, I feel like I personally feel like you come in whole and you leave whole, you know, like as you exit out, you realize, oh, like all the things I tried to control and do, that didn't even matter. You know what I mean?
Like, it's gonna end in disappointment. I love
like,
it.
No,
Thanks, Kim.
no, it's not disappointment. It's like, it's about love, you know?
Yeah.
It's about the things
I'm just
that,
making
like,
jokes.
we make it about so many other things.
Totally.
And, like, the illusion that we've got it figured out. Because
we don't.
Like, nobody knows what they're doing.
No way. No.
We think we might have mastered some aspects.
Right.
But nobody really knows what this is all about. I just call it the life school, right?
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. Life school. Okay.
It is. And so so my mom and I got on the phone that day and I told her that, you know, about myself. And then I said, and she said, that's so wonderful. She said, I feel like I'm floating. And that's when I knew she's separating. And I said, well, you always were a butterfly. And she said, we both are. I can see us now. And I said, which I think is such a beautiful image, you know, for her to be visualizing as she was departing. But she didn't depart yet. Then
so you were on the phone with her?
Yeah, I was on the phone with her. So anyway, after that, that night, I just like so badly wanted to be with her and like to be with her when she passed and to be with her and tell her like it was okay to go and just give her permission and just be there. And I knew I couldn't. But I was like, I can do that through prayer. And so I sat down and I just like visualized myself just sitting with her, holding her hand. And I was holding her hand and I was stroking her arm. And I was just told her everything I wanted to say. And I did it in prayer. And I'm telling you, it felt like so sacred and so beautiful.
Cool.
And I felt the spirit all over it, you know? So that night I went to sleep and I had a dream. And in the dream, I was in this. My mom called me. I was sitting on a beach in the south of France, and in a lounge chair. And my mom called me, and she said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in the south of France." And she said, "Well, I'm coming." So she wheels up in the hospital bed next to me in my dream.
I love it.
I climb into the bed and hold her hand,
Yeah.
and I say the same things in the dream that I had prayed before. Which was so crazy, the repetitious nature of it. Well, the next day, so I call and randomly her friend was there and her friend was like, you want to talk to her. And I was like, yes.
Of course.
So she puts her on the phone and she was kind of losing clarity, but she said, I'm holding your hand, you know? So in the dream and in the prayer, I was holding her hand. She said, I'm holding your hand, darling. And I said, Mom, I love you so much, and I'll always hold you in my heart. And she passed that night.
Wow.
And it was just like I felt like I got a gift to actually go and be with her.
Yeah.
And I felt like after that, you know, obviously I was really devastated. And like for days, I was like wanting to call her, and I was like, oh, I can't, you know, that feel, just that loss. But just a sense that she'd gone into a place of greater beauty of like she transcended this life school, that she had, her suffering here was over, and that wherever she was going next, she was taking like whatever had been imparted to her and whatever she'd left behind here with her, you know. And I always think about that with people that are gone. They're gone. They're not gone. You know, they're there. They're somehow you still have a sense of them.
Totally.
And for me, it's like I think so much of her was imparted into me, and not just me, so many other people, so many other people that like their interactions together changed them.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're carrying that piece of her. And there we go on. They go on that in that manner.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of like how much a dollar's worth. It's like if you spend $1 here, then that dollar goes and spends it over here, and that dollar spends it over there. It's not actually $1. Now it's $3 because it was used
Totally.
3 different spaces.
Totally.
So it's actually $3 value.
Yeah. So I love that analogy. So
Yeah.
that's my recent death thing. And, I do really miss her, but I do feel like it's a continuation.
Uh-huh. I had I've recently, obviously, you've probably seen photos of Benny, my dog.
Yeah.
He cracks me up so much, and his personality is insane, as all dogs are.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, I'm like, dude, if you start talking to me, I wouldn't even think twice about it. I'm like, okay, you're actually just haven't used English this whole time for this year. Okay, I get it. Just because he's had so much personality. And so I had like one late night drinking thought. I was like, what if purgatory is real and we are in it, and those who are in purgatory get sent back to be a dog?
Well, hey.
And they have to.
Depends on who owns you, I suppose.
I know. It's like you did like one thing wrong, and so you get sent back to be a dog and to learn how to get that one thing right of being like whatever it is.
Yeah.
And because like sometimes I'm like, Benny, and he like looks at me like, I really don't want to, but I also really want to get into heaven, so I'm gonna be a good dog. Live this 10 years or 12, 15 years out so I can get into heaven, because if not, I'm going to get sent back again to be another dog.
Right.
I was like, this is the craziest thought ever. But I was like, obviously, who knows? But who knows? It may be, may not be. I don't know. But
we don't know.
It's just something funny to laugh at.
Right.
Something funny to laugh at.
Again, like we said, referenced earlier, it's like, the illusion of knowing.
Yeah.
Because, like, the older I get, the more I am really comfortable with not knowing much of anything.
Yep.
And, like, just being open.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is so much more beauty in that way of life. I think certainty is super damaging because it keeps us from being curious. It keeps us from being open to what other people know.
Yes.
And I believe, obviously, I believe that, everybody is made in the image of God. And I want to know that piece of God in every single person. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, what facet do they have that I can learn from? Because everybody is a teacher. We're all here to learn from one another. And if we think we know it all, we're not going to learn from that person. We're cutting ourselves off from an aspect of God.
Yeah, and that's as I've gotten older too. Obviously, I'm young, but 31. But like when I was in my teens and like super religious and super Christian and all of this, I was like, I know everything. And then as I got into my 20s, then I was like, okay, maybe I don't know everything. And maybe this Christian thing isn't all that there is, because what if I was born on the other side of the planet?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be a Christian. I'd be a Muslim or whatever, wherever I was living. So I was like, okay, so maybe I need to step back and be like, all right, let me try to find that piece that you were saying, which is that piece of God wherever. I don't want the religion understanding. I want the behind that made people create a religion so that we can get to our understanding to God. Because I think that's my belief, is like religions are just humans trying to figure it out and put it in a box so we can understand it a little bit.
Right. Because it's so beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so beyond
it's
that. And,
weirdly beyond that.
I mean, I just am always like from where I was as a pastor.
Yeah.
To where I am now, like I feel like my faith is actually stronger,
Totally.
but it's very different.
Yeah.
It's very much about a relationship, an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing, just like a walking through life with God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like that informs my life
Mm-hmm.
completely. Like it informs my view of things, but it's not in a way where it's in a liberating way,
Totally.
because for me now it's like if it's not if it's not setting you free,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not liberating, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not really God,
Right.
because I feel like like everything is about that. Even pain is about that. Suffering is about that. It's about not about there's not for me judgment. It's like, or for any of us, but to me, in my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in a God of judgment anymore. I fully believe that God is a healer,
Totally.
and that everything that we go through in over time is an opportunity for us to heal so that we can come more fully alive.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite quotes, and I can't remember, you might want to reference this later, who said it. It was a saint. But he said, the glory of God is a human being come fully alive. And
Okay.
so to me, it's like we come more and more alive when we come out of the patterns, the mindsets, all the things that we've kind of been indoctrinated into,
Mm-hmm.
like so many things, like for me personally, from like my childhood all the way through, like we get patterned, we develop all these mechanisms to self-protect
Totally.
and to cope with life and to help us survive things that like are maybe helpful at that time, but then over time they build and become very dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we have to like allow those situations where pain happens, where there's suffering, to like God wants to get in there and be like, it's not so much about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you why. It's about the why. It's
Yeah.
like because the why, if you deal with and heal the why, the what's not an issue anymore.
Totally.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And in that way, you become more and more alive. You become more and more authentic to yourself.
I like how you said like it becomes dysfunctional, and it's because those safety mechanisms that we set up, the situation is no longer there.
Yeah.
But we're still operating on Windows 98, and
Yes.
we're in 2024.
This is
and
the
it's
truth.
like
Yeah.
our system's shutting down because our brain's just locking up, and
Yeah.
it's like, hey, all right, we actually need to update our system.
And we're not
all the time.
Yeah, and we're not even aware that we're doing it.
Totally.
Not at all until and here's one way, just a little tip. One way to know
Uh-huh.
when that is happening is like, let's say you get super angry about something
Mm-hmm.
that is okay, it's triggering, it's a problem, but it's not like something happened legitimately, right?
Okay.
But you're so angry. Okay. That's likely linked to something from a long time ago
Okay.
that you didn't speak up. Somehow that got repressed. And so now it's like you're unleashing a lifetime of anger at this
Jeez.
thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And the better way to handle that is to start to process out,
Why
like,
was I angry?
like, what's happening here? Like, what does this remind me of?
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And just to start to work through that, I journal all the time. So with that, then you can then go back into the situation with a more clear mind, having understood, I have a big issue here, but there is an issue here,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Right? And I need to resolve and work on my own issue, but I do need to bring and use my voice for this thing,
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times it is like you weren't able to speak up.
Yeah.
That's a lot of anger comes from that, of like something happening and you weren't able to, you felt like victimized. You weren't able to
Felt out
have
of
your
control.
stand in your own power.
Got it.
And so like it's an opportunity to learn how to stand in your own power, but also heal from all that back stuff.
So you feel like so you didn't have the power that you know that you have.
Yeah.
And so you just, felt like something happened upon you, and you're like,
Yeah. And for me, there was a lifetime of that, of like just continually like feeling disempowered, like feeling like I couldn't speak up over and over again, because again, those early childhood things set you on patterns where you end up with people that will continually keep those patterns in motion.
Got it. Because
until somebody changes. And when something changes, everything changes.
Yeah. I mean, that's deep. When something changes, everything changes.
Well, it is actually deep.
Yeah, I know.
Because like if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Right? But if you start to change yourself,
totally,
it's gonna change everything.
I mean, physics is that way now. I mean, they figured out like you attract what you are, not what you want.
Yes, and
that's the scary place because most of us don't know what we are, honestly, because it's inside of us and it's a system, 1998 system.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh no.
So when I started to wake up to like and start to heal and like be like, oh, I have a voice, I'm valuable. You know, it started to shake the things. It shook some things.
Sure.
and it ultimately caused a dismantling of some very significant things in my life. You know, because I healed to a point where I couldn't abide in that anymore.
Totally.
I couldn't be in that unhealthy dynamic.
Yeah.
Now, I was still an unhealthy person, but the dynamic was unhealthy, you know, and I couldn't heal there. I couldn't keep going there. So anyway, but that whole process was what began that journey and where everything kind of fell apart. But at the same time, I say fell apart, it was like my awakening at the same time, you know, because it's like death and resurrection, you know, it's like you can't have a new thing going on when the old thing is still present.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, not to say you can't grow in relationships. You certainly can. But in that situation, for me, that wasn't possible. And so there was significant fallout from that. And then there was me then, like, because sometimes people think, and rightfully so, sometimes it's like that the relationship is the issue. There's like the big thing, right? And when you move away from the big thing, you think, oh, I'm free now. I know I wasn't free because all of my internal stuff that got me there in the first place was still present. So, but honestly, when you're in a place where you're in survival mode, you can't really address that at all.
Yeah.
Until you get outside of it, and then you can start to really work on yourself deeply. I mean, that's my perspective. Other people may have a very different experience, but for me, that was how it worked. And so then began the long journey back to myself, my rebirth, where I started to figure out, like, because I didn't even know what I liked. I mean, I didn't know, like, I didn't know that much about myself, because I had become what everybody needed.
Got it.
And part of that is like, being a wife, being a mom, those things. But
you can still have your likes and desires of being a mom.
Yes, but that had been like not high priority. And
right,
so
exactly.
I started to make it a priority and start to really allow myself to come alive and really figure that stuff out. And so I walked out a lot of a process, and it was really like with God, where it was like I started to just pay attention. Like, I would just hear in my spirit, like, pay attention to how you feel when you're in that situation. Pay attention to how your body feels.
Yeah.
Like, and when I would hear you should or you have to, I would recoil, and I would feel it in my body, and I would be like, oh, this feels like shame. This feels like false responsibility. This does not feel free to me. And I started like, okay, I'm not going to do those things for a while. I'm going to, where I feel life, where I feel joy, I'm going to, I'm going to start doing more of that and less of that.
Totally.
And that started to bring me into like, oh, I think I want to do this. And, and courageously letting go of things, because it involves a lot of courage to move from a whole one way of life
Totally.
and the loss therein, and then rediscover yourself and start something brand new.
Yeah, and that's I think the biggest fear of people have is the fear of change.
Yeah.
They'd rather be comfortable in their uncomfortability because it's familiar versus being uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar.
It's so true.
And I love being uncomfortable. I just naturally am that way. So I love making people uncomfortable because it's fun. I mean, it's fun. I'm outgoing and fun, so it's like it's fun for me. I'm like, sorry, you're uncomfortable, but
yeah, you don't make me uncomfortable.
I'm good. Yeah. I'm glad.
Yeah.
But,
no,
yeah.
I mean, well, the thing is, I guess you get used to it and you start to get exhilarated by it.
Totally.
You know, where you realize, oh, okay, this is the key to like moving forward in life. And like, if you're not changing, like we should be always like becoming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say should, because you know, because everybody's different. I don't like that word, so I'm trying to not use it. But there's something to be said for just embracing change fully. You know, even as a pastor. So this is a point of reference.
Cool.
So, you know, I started to feel like in my journey, like you can't have something really big and significant happening without having it affect the way you see things, right?
Absolutely.
And so that would play into how I saw God, because God was becoming very different to me.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And much more loving, much more personal. Like, and a lot of the things that I was experiencing was just a sense of just hearing in my spirit, where'd you learn that? Who taught you that? And I was realizing a lot of it was that things I'd been taught, but not by the Spirit.
Right.
You know, it was interpretations.
It's been taught, not learned.
Right.
Yeah.
And I started to get experiential knowledge. And so I started to see things differently. But as a pastor, it was like I realized this is actually very dysfunctional, because I don't feel like I'm allowed to change. I'm not, you know, it's like I somehow signed on an invisible dotted line that I would always believe this way and always be this way.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying.
And I was like, but that's not healthy. I need to be free to grow. And I understand it because I was a leader, and you know, so I understood it. But ultimately, that was part of the reason why I felt like I needed to move in a new direction, where I feel like I'm always going to be a pastor in my heart, because I don't feel like that was necessarily decided by man, but more by, it's a calling.
Totally.
It's a way that I approach people, you know, is just I mean, you can say pastor, but it's just loving, wanting to serve people, wanting to care for people, you know, and especially in emotional and spiritual ways. So, and I started to really, really long to write, and I recognized as well, I can't be my own voice only as long as I'm a pastor, because I as a leader, my voice would also reflect the group, and it would need to be like also their voice. You know what I mean?
Oh, gotcha.
And so I was like, no, I feel like I need to set my voice free.
Gotcha.
You know, and so it wasn't that I didn't love what I did, because you know I did. Totally loved it and totally miss it, but also and don't have any like bad feelings about it at all. But it was more of like a freedom move for me, and a feeling that I was called outside of that realm into something else, and a different application of those gifts.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, it's like when you're an employee of a company, if you do something, it's not you, it's that company did something to that customer.
Yeah.
It's not you individual person did it.
Totally.
And so especially if they go and tell other friends, Like when I was working for Nordstrom, they were like, if you ever do something bad to a customer, they're not going to say, "Hey, Kaylee over at the E-Bar did this to me." It's, "Hey, Nordstrom's doing this to me."
Right.
And
This is
so,
yeah,
and
this is
so I
true.
understand that analogy with you saying like you didn't feel like you could be fully you because you're now a voice of the organization outside from the outside perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
And I value, like, if I'm going to be in that position, I want to do it with integrity,
Yeah.
and I wanted to do it with in a way that aligned with those values. And it wasn't that I didn't align with those values, but I wanted to be free.
Don't
And
we all?
but it wasn't but it wasn't even it was like a directional pull, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was like I knew like there's something else for me. And it's like it's always like that. It's like as soon as I start to settle into anything, that happens. It's like, and it's not like an escapist thing. It's
get
like
it.
there's always something that I'm being drawn into, it feels.
Yeah.
And so essentially, I never know where I'm going. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
You and me are two peas in a pod.
And so I have like
ask my parents.
Yeah. So to our earlier point, like about like goals and dreams. It's like I have dreams.
Yep.
Like I visualize things, I can see things, but I don't have an expectation of where that's going to land because as soon as I get that, it seems like the ship moves. And I used to be like so upset by that. It was like disappointment. And I feel like that's because I had so much expectation on outcome, and I didn't look at it as like all of this matters. Everything that I thought I failed in, it wasn't a failure. It was a learning experience. I look at the rich things that I learned and gained there. And, it's like you got to reframe that stuff or else you're stuck in regret with where you've been. It's like you kind of take stock of it and you go, okay, well, I wouldn't do that again. But you wouldn't do that again because that experience itself was what changed you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was me for my whole 20s. It was like, I got to go back and work on my insides so I can have the smile that you have instead of the regret that I have. Yeah. But it's like what you're saying though, because I feel like my whole 20s, I was going and doing, like starting this business and then trying that business and then doing this business and then trying that. And it's like, I'm in so much debt. It's crazy because I did a lot of it on debt and not with cash. And so, that weighs on me. But at the same time, I'm like, I wouldn't be the brain and the mind that I am today and the experience that I have when I talk to someone if I didn't have that. So what is money? Money is just whatever. Yeah. It's coupons to live. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, I got to remind myself that way, but my brain is a perfectionist brain. And so,
right.
Yeah. So I got to get out of that thought process and get into more of yours.
Yeah. Where you just kind of take stock of like, just really, I think part of the key of it is like sitting down and figuring out, what did I learn? Mm-hmm. What did I learn from that? What do I now carry that I wouldn't have had without that experience,
So then I can look back as positive views on everything versus negatives.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Because like there have been so many things where I thought, oh, this is going to be the thing, this is it. And really investing in things. And then it didn't turn out. And I thought this was going to be this. And I put all this time into it. I'm wasting my life. I'm wasting my time. But I don't see it that way at all anymore. I really look at it as like everything shapes and molds us for the next place. And I needed every bit of that, every bit of everything to get to where I am today. And it was all part of a life journey. I feel like we all have a journey to take. I mean, it sounds obvious, but it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
We all have a path. And it's like sometimes, look, I used to be like the top tier enabler,
okay.
because I wanted to rescue people out of their pain.
Uh-huh.
It's my heart. It's really big,
and
really good. But I don't do that anymore. I would rather come alongside somebody who is suffering and walk with them, because they need to learn everything they need to learn with that.
Totally.
And I've learned to do that instead. Like I help to empower people now, but I don't enable anymore. I don't try to fix what they actually developmentally need to fix.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, unless I'm directly led by the spirit to do something. But my thing was, I'm going to save this person. I'm going to rescue them from all their problems. And, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And, I mean, I'm saying that it hasn't in my experience, and I've had a lot of experience with enabling. And,
And it's probably because if you take them out of the scenario, their programming hasn't changed. They haven't learned, so then they're just going to fall back in the scenario because their programming is still in place.
This is it. And, it's all, and I would rather walk with somebody and help them with mindset correct,
Yeah.
because a thought creates a mindset, creates an action,
Yep.
creates a lifestyle.
Totally.
And so, if you pull somebody out of a lifestyle, you got to go back. It's like, I call it that upstream thinking, where again, it's a quote where you have to go,
Then we're not salmon.
huh?
I said, we're not salmon.
Right. Well, you've got to go I forget the exact quote, but it is essentially like, people are coming down river. They're like falling in and coming down river, and they're rescuing them out of the river. And they're like, we need to go upriver and find out why they're falling in. So I always think about upstream thinking. It's you got to get to help them to go backtrack and okay, let's start to address the thoughts and, the origin of these things, so that you can actually become a transformed person, not get comfortable in a new life. But I mean, that's good too. But if you're not going to be comfortable with the old mind.
Yeah, because new environment, old mind is still you're uncomfortable.
Totally. Totally. So
even if the new environment is better,
yeah,
and more comfortable,
yeah.
But do you think you would even get into a new environment with an old mindset?
Well, somebody could rescue you and put you in a new environment, and a nice shiny environment, and give you everything that you need.
Yeah.
But with the old mind, you won't prosper there.
Right. Okay.
So it's all of that, and it's like the quick fix of even in religion of you're a new creation. That's not, all those old things are gone. Well, I understand that, I understand I understand that, that we are new, but it takes a long time to assimilate the new.
Totally.
And that's kind of avoided. And it's like, no, just think good thoughts. Well, sometimes you can't, because the old thoughts are big. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you end up feeling bad about yourself, because other people seem to be at least putting on the facade that they're good.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what's wrong with me? I'm not getting it.
And that's like an analogy for you. It's like most people, the statistics are saying, the most people who win the lottery, their life is worse off than it was before, because they got a better, quote unquote, better situation, but then it came and they didn't know how to handle it.
Yes.
And how you handle a lottery style lifestyle is by brick of going through it.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is a thing. So that helps you to back to our earlier point, look at failures, suffering, and everything, and go, okay, this is building me, so that when a good thing does happen, I can stand in it, and I can give this as a gift to other people, because I've walked through so many things that I now can walk alongside somebody and say, you're not alone. Me too. I've been there,
And I've had that so many times. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And it's you can give empathy, not sympathy.
Yep.
and then people can feel the difference.
Totally.
Because sympathy, they feel like you're pandering to them.
Yes. Yes.
And empathy, they're like, oh, this guy actually understands where I'm coming from.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
it's real. It's real
Yeah.
and it's tangible,
Yeah.
and it's like
People have a real good BS meter.
totally.
Like we feel it.
Totally. Totally. And it feels like platitudes. It doesn't feel like being raw and authentic with what you've been through is what heals people. And people are so resistant to it, because it's not common,
Yep.
and for people to be open about things. But I recently spoke, and I had a number of people come up to me afterwards and tell me they felt like they had freedom to be open now because, and that's what it does. Freedom gives you free. Being around someone who is free, and I'm freer. I'm not saying I've arrived. Let's be clear.
Hey,
I put the on the end.
Yeah. We're all moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm complete now. I can transcend. I can transcend.
And life is a lifelong
Yeah.
healing journey, and it's a lifelong freedom journey. But look, the more you like, when I was growing up, my whole life, I've loved the story of Harriet Tubman, and just she was a personal hero to me. And I look at it like just how she went through so much to get free.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to just be free. She went back over and over and over to bring other people down the path that she had already
Totally.
taken. And that's like the metaphor, of like, just now there's a path. I know the path. I know the way. You know the way. Because you've walked in it. Not that there is one way, but there is a way out of pain, of that specific kind of pain.
Right.
Whatever specific kind you're talking about, whatever you've been through, you can now give that as a gift. Once you've walked through healing, it can become a gift. And even in the middle of healing, because so sometimes you think, I need to get over here. I need to be so far past everything and be like transcended everything in order to have a voice. But that's not true. Being in the middle of it is also powerful, to let people know I'm here, because then they're going to watch you get out.
Yep. Yeah, I think it was, I can't remember the full quote, but not the full quote, but it's that victory is inspiration, but struggle is like communication, meaning like it's something like that, which is meaning like when you win, it inspires people, but that's short lived.
Yep.
But when you show people struggle, when you show other people your struggle, it is like it shows that they can do it too, because it's like, hey, you're you're human too. You're not like superhuman, and I can't live up to that expectations.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, I can do it too because you had struggle as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I won't like teach out of the middle of the mess about that mess.
Yeah.
Maybe another mess that I've
come
out of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe the last mess.
Yeah.
But like when I'm in that though, I'm gonna be honest about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna like. There's a funny place of like, or a tricky place of being like open and vulnerable and raw, and acknowledging where you are and being present for that and feeling it and feeling the grief that's coming up, but not drowning in it. You know what I mean? Still keeping vision and life present. And, and just allowing that process, but not letting it define all of your life.
Yeah.
And so I try to give myself, like, even now in grieving, I let myself feel all the feels about that.
I love it so much.
Yeah. And I journal, if I cry, I do whatever. And then I get grateful, because gratitude pulls you right out of that.
Absolutely.
But it's not just like, oh, I'm grateful I'm not going to feel. No, that's not real.
That pushes it down, and then it starts setting up.
It's coming. It's
Yeah.
coming for you.
Yeah. That's
Trust me.
Dude, that's what I've learned that's what I've learned in my past few relationships. If like when we ended, of the girls I dated, like when we ended, it was like devastating.
Yeah.
And then, but earlier in life, I just was like, I'm good, push it down. I'm good, push it down. But that's setting up the Windows 98 in my brain. And I'm like, I can't work on this operating system.
Yeah.
And then I'm wondering why I'm insecure when I want to go talk to someone new.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, maybe because my subconscious is telling me that I'm in pain from a past relationship and I didn't let it out. And because so females freak you out because they cause you pain. No, you just haven't dealt with your stuff and get it out. And so now from that time frame, now I'm doing that with everything. So like if I have ever had any kind of trauma, quote unquote, that didn't go my way or whatever, and I feel it, I like literally feel it here.
Yeah.
And so like I either, if I can deal with it then, or right at that moment, I deal with it.
Yeah.
But if not, I'm like, I'm gonna bank it until a time that I can give myself an allotted time of just like, all right, I'm gonna feel it all and get it all out, cry it all out, and just let it go because I literally feel like the weight lifts off my chest, and it's like that's a crazy thing of how it like affects the physical body.
It's totally does.
Weird.
It totally does. And crying is so cathartic. I mean, it's actually physiologically really good for you, you know, to move that negativity out of your body. But I mean, it's the way that we're made to to let that be released, you know? Anyway, that's amazing that you're doing that because it's like so important. It's so important to feel things and to like allow yourself to grieve. We don't know how to do that. It's just like, okay, that happened, you know, give yourself a day, move on. But no, it stays and it remains. And it's not, you know, it's also not linear. You know, sometimes like a new situation will happen and it'll bring some more stuff up.
Yeah.
So at that point, let it come up.
Yeah.
Let it come up and like let yourself feel it then and like do a little more processing and keep yourself grounded in a place of gratitude. So I do a walk every day, like a long walk, and you know,
I mean, your driveway's long enough. You can just walk all the way out there.
No, I go way past that. But you're right.
I was driving in and I was like, I forgot how long this driveway was.
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome.
I am back here. Yeah. But so I'll take my long walks and then, you know, I will like part of the walk, you know, I'll process things, you know, I'll just like let my feelings come. I'll talk to God about it, you know, and a lot of times I will have already written, like I do that in my journal. I just like pour, like I'll get up and do like the brain dump, you know, and it's like I don't care what it sounds like, how rough, raw, you know, terrible, wonderful. It doesn't matter. It's going in there, and then I will pray and I'll wait and I'll get like a word, you know, I'll, like something will come up in my heart and it's not me. It's like coming and it's like a different way to see things, something about that situation that I didn't understand, something about me that I need to know. That's good. And
have you read the book, The War of Art?
No, it's on my list though.
Yeah. I forgot the author, but you know, that is one of the things that he talks about in that is, he talks about like the ether or the muse rather.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you show up every day, like it's a job, quote unquote, the muse will show up to meet you.
Yep.
And sometimes it will feel like you're working and sometimes it won't. And, I watch a lot of stand-up podcasts, and so I like hearing different people's writing styles and stuff, just because it's fun for me.
Yeah.
But that was that's like a common thing among comedians, like top tier comedians, that they all just literally just write out, just free flow, just data dump on the page, and then they go and do something physical.
Yeah.
Whether it be a workout, whether it be a walking,
Yeah.
whether it be some swimming,
Yeah.
something, and then in that process of that physical activity, then they see their jokes from a different perspective, like a door opened up.
It's
and
totally what
and
happens.
so then they get back to it, and then they fully write down what the joke was.
Yeah.
And
So that's what happens. Like I do the whole brain dump and get a word, and then I'll go out and like really like meditate on that word.
Yeah.
While I'm walking, you know, and like it's like I call it my note to self. It's like, yeah,
I like that.
This is what I want to hang on to for today.
Yeah.
You know, the other stuff I already
7
gave.
p.m.
The other stuff I already kind of gave over. You know, I already just dumped that. It's gone out of my body, and it's like it's not that it's maybe over, but it's not pressing. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna like meditate on this amazing thing I just heard, right? So, or something that it made me think about. So anyway, but then partway through the walk, I practice being thankful. Like, and it's a practice. It's not like you're necessarily your normal, you know?
Yeah.
But it is start to think about what is beautiful. And what it does is it tunes your eye to look.
Yep.
You know, and it keeps you in a place of being in joy and being, you know, being in a true state of hope, you know, for what is. You know, so you can deal with what was, you know what I mean? And what your fears are and all those things. But then you kind of ground yourself in, okay, but what is right now? Everything is actually fine.
Yeah. That's, I'm reading a book called Loving What Is.
Oh, yeah. I know
It's
that book.
You said you have it?
Yeah, I've read it.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
A great book.
Yeah.
By,
Is it Byron Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good
I'm
book.
going through it. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's changed my life majorly. Because
That's
it's like,
so
what is
good.
reality? Okay, this person should do this stuff, but is that reality? No.
Yeah.
So how are you going to change? Because you're angry at this person, but is that true?
Yeah.
No. Is it absolutely true? No.
Yeah.
So then who are you without that thought? And it's like, okay, can you find a peaceful way to keep it? And then it's like, I'm in trouble.
There you go. Oh, no, you're not.
I'm in trouble because I either need to still be angry and it's not peaceful, or I got caught. Okay.
Yeah, but then you're like, okay, but why do I need to be angry?
Right.
Because does it make me feel powerful to
Right.
be angry,
Yeah.
or in control, or you know what I mean? What are the reasons?
I love that. That
yeah.
book has been on autopilot now for me. Like my thought process is now like, if I ever get any kind of discomfort in a way, it's like, all right, let me think.
Yeah.
And but now it's so quick because it is just I've been doing it for the past couple weeks.
Yeah.
And so it's just like any kind of discomfort, it's like most likely it's my thought process on it, and the reality is
Yeah.
not true.
Exactly. Because when we can accept
Yeah.
what is and
Yeah.
just operate in it, it doesn't mean like it's all perfect.
Correct.
But it means that you are where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and like to like learn from it, to embrace it, you know, and to not fight what is.
Yeah. And that was a lot of my life growing up in my 20s, is like so focused. And really even when I was with you guys a lot
Yeah.
in my 17, 19-year-old time frame.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was like so focused on the future, not actually enjoying the is.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
And I think culture and you know, I wouldn't say particularly Christian culture, because it's all of culture. It's
Totally.
so like, what are you gonna be? What are you gonna do? And it's so much pressure. So much pressure.
yeah.
And it never really ends. I mean, it starts with like if you allow that,
Yeah.
right? If you don't come out of those mindsets that that's not real, you know, that's not what life is really about, you know, but we're just indoctrinated into that. And then it's just go, you know, achieve. And we can lose a lot by doing that. Of course, like reflectively, you also gain a lot,
Mm-hmm.
In wisdom and understanding. But even for me now in the stage of life I'm in, the temptation is to be like shaming myself about what should be, what other people have, where they are.
Mm.
And it's like, no, I won't.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I
Yeah.
definitely had a season of that. But I don't, because I'm thankful for, like, I've had a wild, crazy life. And I'm like, I kind of love that. It's like, I guess it's me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It is.
And it's
Yeah.
like, when you make peace with that and you're like, oh, well, this has just been my life. This is how my life's gone down. And I'm kind of happy about it. And more and more, I just want to just be true to myself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the goal. That's my real goal, is to be true to myself and love people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it breaks down to.
Yeah, and we all know what we truly want.
Yeah.
Most of us are just scared to do it.
Yeah.
Because of the thought of what other people would think of us.
Yeah.
And I think those who truly live in their unapologetically themselves, enjoy the life their best.
Yeah.
They are the happiest.
Yep.
No matter what it is.
Yep.
And most of the time they are successful because they are unapologetically themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's attractive, and so people want to fuel it.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay.
The more I'm unapologetically myself, and the more I like fully accept and love myself, the more, because that's been a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Really. But the more that I actually authentically engage that, you know what I mean? Not just saying I'm loving myself, but like actually do it.
Yeah.
And actually like say, I'm not going to betray myself. I'm going to just I'm just going to live my best life, and I'm going to like not live in fear and like hang on to things because of comfort, but I'm going to go for it. The more I feel like it's naturally going where I long to go. It just seems like it's just unfolding, but without me really trying. And that's through relationships, and it's through this sense of wonder of like, which is where I like to camp. Is like, oh wow, that was weird. I wonder what that's about, and then go. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to drift over there and see what that's about, because whenever something kind of unusual is happening, I don't think they're coincidences. So I'm just like, oh, this person randomly called me. I haven't talked to them for years. Well, I'm going to go visit them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that makes life so fun. And it also is like, it's kind of the way that I'm being led into all the new things. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, that was something that Joe Rogan said, #1 podcast in the world kind of thing. He said he's only ever done the things that he felt like he should.
Yeah.
And so it's like, he was like, when I was in my young kids age, I was martial artist, and I loved it, and that's where I went. And then I grew out of that, and then became a TV host. And then while I was doing that, I still had the love for martial arts. And then I became a commentator for martial arts. And then I just wanted to do podcasts with my friends, and that was fun. And then it took him, and he was like, I just had fun going along the way.
Yeah.
And then it just blew up to being the way what it is, where it is. It's like, I just never did anything that I didn't want to do. I just went along with he was like, obviously I had terrible jobs along the way to keep myself afloat. He's like, I was in construction and stuff, but it's like, he was like,
character development.
Yeah.
But
he realized I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like, people don't think that we can actually do that,
Yeah.
We don't learn that we can do that.
Yeah.
And I just want to live that and be an example of just like, live your best life, just like go for it. Go for it, and don't let other people define who you are and what you're going to do. Like, find out what's really inside yourself, peel back all those layers, and find out what's really inside yourself, and whatever the greatest longing is, people think, gosh, it's selfish. No, it's not. It's,
No.
again, a human being come fully alive. How much more powerful is a person who's fully alive?
Yeah,
How much
exactly.
more can they impact and have, lead other people into freedom than when they've gone through that process? And like the desires of our heart are probably, in my opinion, placed there from, they're there when we're born, and we
Yep.
just cover them up. And it's like when we can tap into that and just like live in that,
Yeah.
it's contagious.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, is because from like childhood, I've always wanted to be in entertainment. I was in entertainment for like musical theater throughout high school, and then and you can, if we had technology to figure out how to get VCR stuff to, there's probably digitalization stuff, but I don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Or just go to the grandparents' place and find a VCR, put all of our home videos. You always see Tim would be always in the back or in the foreground telling a crazy story, and I was in the background being a goofball.
Right.
To the camera, though.
Right.
I wasn't just being a goofball. I was focused on the camera, making sure
No.
that people knew that I was entertaining them. And so I was just like, and then throughout young kids, I was always watching like behind the scenes of movies and things. I've always wanted to be in entertainment, but I just never had the guts to go after it. Or I would believe the lie of being like, the percentages of you making it in Hollywood versus other people is so slim, and then in reality, it's like, yeah, this percentage is the same for them too.
Right.
Like, looking back on it now, I'm like, dang, I wish I did
Go
after it, but because the percentage is the same thing for them too. But yeah, but the technology is here now, and so it's like, okay, maybe all that happened so that I can do this, because this is what I really love to do, is just talk to people.
And you're awesome at it.
Yeah, thank you.
And you have always been about entertainment as long as I've known you, which was since you were a teenager. I've always seen that for you, and you had the theater background. It was very clear that was what you were built for.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see you gravitating back to.
Yeah, this is the most fun I've had in a long time.
But again,
Like
all
outside
the
of-
experiences you've had, you're going to find that you learned things that you're going to use in the years to come. Yeah, completely.
You said something about betraying yourself. Is that just like doing something that you wanted to, but then you didn't, or?
Well, I mean, it
Or what do you mean by
would play
that?
out in a lot of ways. I mean, mostly it's like I want to walk in integrity, like that.
To yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
It's like if you say you're gonna do something,
to
you do
betray
it.
myself means to make myself small, really,
Okay.
or to settle for less than my heart knows.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Because inside myself, I'm like, yeah, I could do something that would make me comfortable, and I'm sure there are people who would think that would be wise.
Mm-hmm.
But inside of me, there's like something that I just have a knowing.
That's this for me.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, there's just such a knowing, and it's like multiple things, but
Yeah.
it's just like, and I can't even really define it. It's just I have a knowing that there's a place I'm supposed to go, and if I let myself get stuck in something, I'll never find out, and that to me is worse than like having to scramble to make it happen, because it is a scramble. It's like I don't have the financial security, but there's an inner security that, like, of being in tune with myself that matters more.
Yeah, you feel it too. Like you feel, like for me at least, some days I feel like I'm like, dang, nothing can get me down.
Yes.
I'm hitting all the green lights. I'm just driving in the flow. I'm like, I'm going pumping gas, and then something awesome happens, and then this happens, and then like the whole day I'm like, okay, how do I get that every day?
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's not supposed to be just a one-off thing. That should be every day.
Right. And so what happens is another thought has come in.
Meaning?
Meaning, okay, so for me, it's like maybe a bill rolled in. And now I'm consumed with
Oh,
the
gotcha.
natural plane
Got it.
of like,
Yep.
how am I going to figure this out?
Mm,
Right.
okay.
So I've come out of the place of living in the flow.
Uh-huh.
I've stepped out of flow
Yeah.
because what you're describing is the creative flow space.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just wake up and
It's like you've tapped into the flow of Kaylee.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I love that spot. I love
It's so
being in
much
the
fun.
flow. I love like when I'm writing and I'm in flow, it's like that is like the high, the best high
Yeah.
ever. It's amazing. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I long for it and sometimes I'm like, I don't want to write. I'm not in flow, but you know,
You show up.
you do, you show
Yeah.
up, you do the things.
Mm-hmm.
But they're you know, that it's staying in that flow place, but we have to like deeply connect to that over and over. You know, it's like I always think about like, okay, I've been driving this way my whole life, right?
Yep.
There are some deep grooves in that road,
Yep.
right? And now I want to go over on this road, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like my car's out of alignment. It wants to keep going back to the old way.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I think happens. I think over here is the flow place, and we want to be there, but our car is so used to the old ways and the ways that feel secure, that our ego feels like it can be in charge and in control, and like the fears kick in to kind of navigate us back to old things. And we have to continually like renew the mind to come back into living in that flow space and trusting. It's a real trust walk. It's a trust. You know, for me, it's trusting in God that I'm really being guided, you know, and that this is really my path. But for me, it's like to not do it again is like much worse than like to like come to the end of my life and be like, I could have tried, but I didn't. I was too afraid. No, I won't. No.
Yep. That's how I'm seeing the past 10 years. Cause it's like, I could have tried day trading and I did.
Yeah.
I could have tried all the other things that I've done and I did. And so now I'm like, the only reason why I'm in regret is because I didn't do it properly with finances. That's the only reason. If I did it properly and didn't have any financial burden on the back end of it, then I would have zero regret to it. But as soon as those things are wiped out, I'm going to look back at those things and be like, that was the best 10 years. That was such an awesome, fun 10 years. And I've learned it for future. Like all this stuff was pay with cash, not with on credit. Yep. And so it's like, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're learning really important things at a young age because you're still very young.
Yeah. 31.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird because I'm like thinking like when I'm just getting into 40s or just into 40s, we're going to have had 3 presidents.
Yeah.
3 presidents elected.
Right.
Which is weird to think about.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, wait, what? That's wild.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, we're about to have one this year. Then that'll be 4 years. And then when I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
That's an odd one to think about. But
yeah. Well, for like I do have a song and I'll tell you in a second. But
cool.
when I think about like how to project forward, like goal wise,
yeah,
like there are certain things that I want to write a book.
Yep.
There's certain things that are definites that I can achieve. They're not up to like chance. I can actually do that.
Yeah, that just takes work.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But for other things, in visualization type of ways, I more visualize the kind of person I want to become
Okay.
and the kind of life I want to live.
Okay.
Because that's what I can actually invest in right now. Like I can be like, okay, if in 5 years I want to be the kind of person that does this, then I will make choices that align with that now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
that support me becoming that person.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would be the same with like, okay, if I want to write a book, I get in the chair,
Yep.
Those same kind of things. But I do visualize the way that I want to live, because that for me, it determines as much as what I do is like, what kind of a lifestyle do I want to have?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking about that a lot over past years, because I was on the hamster wheel of never ending work.
Yeah.
And it really impacted me in a negative way. And like, I'm not opposed to really hard work at all. I'm a really hard worker, but I want to have a certain flow of lifestyle. And I figured out what works for me. That's being authentic to myself, and living in integrity with myself, and saying, okay, like, this is the way that the flow that I want to live in, okay, and the kind of life I want to have. And it involves like time for family, friends, traveling, the things that really matter to me, and then, like, I mean, if I don't have time to like bake stuff, I'm just not a happy person. You know what I mean? It's like, it just flows out of me, And so, and if I don't have time to write, I know who I am now, and I know what works and what doesn't, and I stick with what works, and I just build on that. So anyway.
So when you visualize who you want to be in the future of like 5 years or something, can you give me like an example?
Yes, I can. So I used to struggle with a victim mindset. Okay. Well, there was a lot of things that I could call myself victimized by, right? Okay. There was real trauma, very significant things that happened all through my life, right?
I know a few.
And lots of hard things, lots of losses. But that doesn't mean that I need to be a victim. That means there was an occurrence, but I don't need to align with that mindset. And so when those thoughts come up, the poor me's, like, why is everything always so hard for me? Those kind of thoughts.
Okay.
I literally talk to that thought and I say, you're not that girl anymore. Like, I don't want to be that person. I'm going to be a thankful person, and I literally align with the person that I want to be. And I don't want to be a person who feels sorry for herself, and the things like that. Of course, you have a bad day here and there. I'm not like putting that down,
right?
But I'm just saying, in general, I don't want to walk in those ways. I don't want to be a person who blows up on people. You know what I mean? Because I haven't expressed myself, or I've tamped down my emotions so much that all of a sudden I just blow up. I've done that. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to really work on processing my emotions in a healthy way. And so that's the way to meaningful change, is to just kind of define, I want to be a different kind of person. And that looks like this. And so I'm going to make some choices about how I engage on a day-to-day basis in order to get there.
Got it.
To get that car comfortable on the new road.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Because I was like, what do you mean by see yourself in a different way?
Yeah.
Or plan yourself? Because like, obviously, for me, like, I can only think of myself like in, like, I'm like, I would love to have that way of living, but that's like physically, not like myself.
Yeah.
Because like, for me, I read a book a month. That's my goal. We'll see. We'll see if it happens this year.
Yeah.
I'm on track, but
good.
Not this month. But yeah, thank God for Audible. You can smash out half a book in 2 days.
You got that right.
But yeah, for me, I'm like, I see like the next book that I want to read, and that's like really close, and like saying like, okay, that's not 5 years from now of how I want to be, because I can't see myself of how I want to be 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Like emotionally or any of that kind of stuff. It's more of physical stuff. But I see like I want to I know that I need to work on X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
right now. So then I just like go get a book for that. But I'm not like projecting 5 years from now. So that's why I was questioning.
Well, and maybe you're not conscious of that. It's not, I mean, it's not it's not a necessity. It's just something that I kind of do rather than having a 5-year goal of like what I'm going to achieve. It's more what I'm becoming, who I'm becoming. You know what I mean? And what I'm letting go of, what I'm shedding, you know?
Okay.
So I would be really interested to find out if you looked over the books that you're choosing, what themes they are, because your inner self is already showing you where you're going.
Yeah, I'm going to have...
I bet there's a theme to all of them.
Got a bunch of titles. I got a bunch of titles there.
Yeah. I mean, I bet you there's a pattern there, and you'll be like, oh, see, my body... my inner self is navigating me there. I haven't really thought about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I lived my life being so self-aware that it's like I want to live my life in peace and harmony.
Yeah.
And then when something comes up as the abnormity, then I address that.
Yeah.
With material, podcast, or whatever, however I do it. But I'm aware of the abnormities, not necessarily the good feelings.
Yeah.
Because the good feelings are just like, hey, this is natural living.
Yeah.
And then when something takes that away, then I'm like, okay, was that me reacting a certain way? And now I'm figuring out that it's always me. It's just my perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you, book that I just am reading.
Right. So, well, I mean, shedding old ways or setting your gaze on something else is all the same thing. I mean, it's all moving you in the direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Something I've learned the past what was March, back in March. So back in March, I was at a winery with my girlfriend, and we were talking. We were doing like with the tasting with. We were doing a tasting with the taster people. I don't know what a winery person is, but they were doing different things, and when they were like, what do you taste? Because I'm not a big wine drinker. She is, and so it's like, okay. But when she knows wine, they know wine. I know nothing.
Right.
I know what tastes good, and then what the experience I have when I taste things and when I hear things.
Yeah.
And so we were going down the line. They were talking wine talk. This is this and that. This is that and this and this. Yeah. And then when I tasted, I was like, I feel like I'm at the circus.
I love it.
They were like, what? This was the first one. And I was like, I feel like I'm at the circus. I see like bright blue, yellow, and red when I taste it. That's what I feel like the atmosphere is. And she was like,
that's awesome. I love it.
She was like, what? And my girlfriend, she knew what was going on because I already told her, like, when I hear music, I have a music video play in my head.
Yeah.
I've had it my entire life.
Yeah.
And I've didn't know that was like an odd thing.
Yeah.
And so that's why I've always loved music. And I've come to realize that that's the same thing when I taste things too. Like I have like an experience. I'm not just like tasting, this tastes like more fruity forward, or this more grounded. It's like when I taste the grounded stuff, I see Africa.
Yeah.
Like I'm tasting, not for wine, but for like when I was drinking coffee, for instance. When I tasted things, I saw in my head different locations. And so all of that to say, the lady, she said, sounds like you're an HSP. And I was like, oh, what?
Yes.
Do you know what an HSP is?
I'm one too.
No way. Okay. Yeah. And so I was like, I was like, what is an HSP? And she was like, it's a highly sensitive person. And I was like, that first and foremost, that's hilariously ironic because the people who receive more information just having that title should be offensive.
Right. Right.
I was like hilariously ironic. But anyways, I learned about that back in March, and I was like, okay, I get it. Perfect. So for me, I'm an I have, my brain is wired HSP aesthetics.
Yeah.
And so, like I can walk into a room and I'd be like, I like the vibe of this place.
Yes.
And I deep dived on all of that and learned about that. And so that was another reason why I wanted this podcast to be called Life Song and Death, because I love life. I love talking to people about life, how they got to where they are. I'm fascinated with death and people's experiences with that, what their belief is on the back end, where we're going to go with it. And then songs just has a special place in my heart, because when anybody shares a new song with me, it's like, oof. It's like they're giving a piece of experience to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the most life-giving thing for me is music.
That's so cool.
And so it's like, I love it so much. And so, because they're giving a piece of them to me, but they don't know what they're doing when they say, hey, I got this new cool song.
Yeah.
For me, I get to go to a different location.
Yeah.
For however long that song is.
It's so cool.
And so I'm going on the internet crying. Yay.
I love it. I love it.
I'm crying on the internet. So yeah, I'd love to hear the song that you brought.
So yeah, it's called Ripples by Modest Yahoo.
Oh, okay.
And so here's the thing. There's so many songs. There are so many songs. There are like all-time favorites or specific like memories. You know, I was thinking of so many different songs, but this one song just like the one line was stuck in my head on repeat. I hope that doesn't happen to every person watching this for the next 3 months, but hey, sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Right. So, anyway, but, because I was there, I was like, I think that's a sign. But then I started to like think about it, and I was like, yeah, it's actually where I am right now. And I'll explain that a little bit. And I also feel like it has to do with where you are. So I felt like it was perfect for now. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll listen to it. I'm going to put the link in the description so that you guys can listen to it, or you guys can just look it up on Spotify, iTunes, whatever you want to do. So, but we're going to listen to it. We're going to cut it out, and then we'll talk about it on the back end. So just because copyrights, awesome. we back.
Yay.
We back. Yeah, which is hilarious. This is now probably the second time. Let me see. I know. It's pretty close, but pretty close to it. The album cover or the song cover on that was pretty close of where the scene of where I was at. It first started like for me. It first started like sand, like just when I heard like the sound, and then sound, and then I was like, okay. And then it went to like immediately like the beaches of Jerusalem, and then it transported to just sitting in or swaying in a hammock in between two trees, and it's like I was able to see over there, like just some guy have like his little shack of refreshments or drinks or whatever serving to the people on the beach, and it was like that was just like their way of living. There wasn't like strife. It wasn't like, hey, some people were on vacation, but some people lived there. So it's like, okay. And I first thought it was Israel because I'm thinking maybe it's just thinking back to him, knowing he was a Messianic Jew, but then it quickly changed from Israel to like a southern place, like an island place. It wasn't Jerusalem. It was definitely an island place somewhere, and it was just like Oh yeah. Everyone has their own life that they live. And they have, like, if I was living in Jamaica, then I would be living a completely different thought process than the way I'm living now.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that it's like, okay, we're all malleable.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it was for that song for me, it was just like, okay, peace, relax, settle in. That's why I felt like I was like, just lay in this hammock and sway in the wind.
Yeah.
And settle in.
Yeah.
It was like where I saw.
Cool. You know, for me, it represents the balance between rest and action.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you create a ripple,
Mm-hmm.
just like with you, just starting this. You're not controlling a wave. You're controlling a ripple,
Mm-hmm.
and then you rest. You know what I mean? And I think there's a place of balance of where we rest and allow breath to come on what we're doing.
Yep.
But every action causes a reaction, like we
Absolutely.
talked about before. So it's like if there's a ripple, there will be a wave in time. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And that is true for inaction. It's true for negative action. It's true for positive action. And whichever way we decide to go, it's going to create some kind of a wave. And so I felt like it was a blessing to you for the wave that you're wanting to create out of your flow.
Totally.
And I'm also in a new flow. So that's why I think that song keeps repeating to me, is like, because I'm trying to stay in my flow place.
Yeah.
I feel like just creating my own ripples and seeing where the breath is going to take that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to add that song. Now I'm thinking, I'm like, every song I get, I'm going to add to a playlist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I'll probably put it on Spotify so I can share it. I think Apple Music now has it too, that you can share playlists with people.
Cool.
Or like collab with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it.
Nice.
We talked a little bit about death, but as an experience, and I think you talked about, yeah, you did. I mean, you talked about that you think it's a higher conscious and stuff, but we can go a little funky, or we can end it here and then go funky later.
Yeah.
Because I definitely want to talk more.
Oh yeah, me too.
I had
me
so much
too.
fun.
me too. Me too.
Because we're at an hour and a half.
I
so.
totally loved it. Yeah. So we should probably wrap it up.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, I think like to close, I mean, I don't know if you caught the first part I was talking about of the death of hope and how devastating that was. But like, there's so many types of death. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And there is, it's all a part of life. And I think like there's so much fear around death, but everything is always dying, I mean, like we're shedding cells all the time. We're always being renewed. So why is the actual death any different?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I look at it. And I also look at it like in, where the scripture that says, unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, there can be, no harvest. So I look at everything as like seeds, like any kind of death is a seed of expansion, for what has died. And, like in our own lives, if we allow something to die, then we're creating space for what is new, So that's another way of looking at death, because there's so many different things to talk about around that topic, but we'll do that next time.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye.